Hello, everybody. Everyone who's tuning in, I just want to say hello, and I'm really glad that you're here and you're taking this time to listen to what we're going to share today. I'm really excited to be talking with a dear friend and a colleague and someone who inspires me greatly, Heather Lyle, who is not just a voice coach for a wonderful long career in that at this point, but also a voice scientist. And what I love about what Heather does is she blends wisdom from ancient traditions around voice with current science and research. And I'm just going to do a sound check thing here. Hold on a sec. There you go. And what I love about how she blends the ancient traditions and the more current knowledge of anything we have scientifically around voice is that it creates the best blend of anything we can utilize for empowering ourselves with voice, for utilizing our voice with more knowledge on literally a medicinal level of what voice can offer. And voice is so much about not just how we sound. It's so much about our energy. It's literally about energetic anatomy and about how we can also calibrate that for many layers of our health and well-being. So I want to just first, again, invite and introduce Heather Lyle. Here we go. Heather!
Hi, Terra!
I'm really glad you're here and we get to share this.
Thank you so much.
I didn't mention before that I've known Heather, gosh, I don't even know how long I've known you now, Heather, but it feels like a long time, lifetimes. But we've shared from many different angles, right? We've shared from the perspective of you being my teacher and sharing what you know best, and me also being in the role of being teacher and sharing what I know best and collaborating on projects together. There's a training that Heather leads every year in how to be a vocal yoga teacher trainer and how to bring that out into the world in a really beautiful, amazing way. And I got to collaborate in some of the beginnings of that, and which I still love to be a part of. It's coming up in June as well. It's coming up soon. So I want to make sure we talk about that for people who are interested. But Heather, can you start first with just telling us anything about your background with voice and what led you into working so deeply with voice?
Okay, so I originally started out as a performer, and I never thought I'd be a teacher, but I've been doing yoga since I was a child because my father spent 17 years at the Sri Aurobindo ashram in India. So he raised us with a lot of philosophy of yoga and Aurobindo. And at 14, I really dedicated my life to yoga. That was it. I wanted to go meditate under a tree in India, which my mother didn't let me do, but that's what I wanted to do. And so yoga had always been a part of my life. But I actually started an opera career, and in the middle of my singing, when my career was starting to really move, I went to sing one day and nothing came out of my mouth. And it was a very strange experience. I could speak, but I couldn't sing. So I like to say that singing saved my life. What happened is I actually had a large tumor in what's called the mediastinal area, which is your chest right here. I had a cancerous tumor in my chest that was pressing on what we call the recurrent laryngeal nerve to the vocal cords. And that's what innervates the vocal cords. And what happened is I went to sing and nothing came out of my mouth. So I went through a lot of treatment. I got well. I did end up, though, with a partially paralyzed vocal cord, which you'll hear a little bit in a crackling in my voice now and then. Like if I go low, it'll crack a little bit. But doesn't affect my singing, doesn't affect the health of my voice. How that is, though, is I became obsessed in the workings of the vocal cords, in rehabilitation of the vocal cords. And so I ended up becoming a vocalogist, and I've pretty much devoted my life to the rehabilitation, to the habilitation of the throat area. And then, of course, I experienced trauma from that. So that led me down the world of trauma. And as I said, I got a master's in voice, and then I went to the National Institute of Voice and Speech and became what's called a vocalogist with master scientist Ingo Tietze. And so I pretty much devoted my whole life to figure out how can we have our vocal cords work the best. But then, of course, I had to integrate yoga because I realized, wow, the voice is really breath. What affects our breath? Trauma affects our breath. I went through some serious traumatic events through my medical treatments. So how could I keep my throat free? And then how could I assist other people in having a free throat? And what I realized is that it's not just the throat area that's affected by trauma, but the whole body is. And the whole body will armor in response to trauma. And if we don't release that trauma in some way, what will happen is we can just end up with parts of our body that don't vibrate with sound and they don't move when we breathe. So it led me down. How can I open up the whole body? First to breath. I started with breath. And then if we open up the body to breath, let's put some sound in there and create vibration, because we know that parts of the body that get disease are not vibrating well anymore. So what if we put vibration in those parts of the body? So what started as basically a wellness journey for the voice and expression also ended up into a healing journey for the whole body.
Love it.
Kind
Love
of
it.
Explanation.
Speaking of, I'm hearing some feedback, but when you're close, I'm not hearing it. I just wanted to give you that. Yeah, right there.
You have a little crackling too.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it's coming from, but I just want to acknowledge it's there.
Good. Is this better now?
Yes, it is. And I don't know why, but I noticed a difference. It's
Come
good.
a little closer too.
Sounds, I don't hear anything on my end now.
Oh no, for you it's better when you're closer too.
Oh, good to know. All right.
The sound of the world.
So you brought up a couple of things that I'd love to talk about. One is the idea that that singing is breathing and talking, and then singing is breath with sound, right? So singing, let me say that again, is pranayama, or breath with sound. We call it pranayama in yoga practices. And that is really key to me. That changed my whole way of thinking about sound, or thinking about speaking or singing, when I recognized that our relationship to how our air and our oxygen and our prana, or our life force, is really what we're regulating when we're making sound. And the sound that we hear is in my experience and understanding, but I hope you'll talk about it more, is the sound that we hear is a reflection of that clarity of attunement, right? Whether or not we're really riding or opening to the waves and the frequencies in our body is going to be reflected in the sound we make. And would you speak to that?
Oh yes, completely. I love the way you verbalized that. That was beautiful. Okay, I just wanted to check this quote. I love this. So Wordsworth, the poet, he said that the voice is a mirror into the soul. And what I think he meant is that you can actually tell a lot about someone's voice. You can tell the physical state of their body. How are they feeling, right? If someone's not feeling well, like often what you'll hear. For example, old lady, what we call old lady voice, that's when the voice becomes really devitalized, but their whole body is devitalized usually. So actually, often through vitalization of the voice, somebody can get more energy in their whole body. So first off, physically. Secondarily, you can tell someone's confidence in their voice. How are they feeling emotionally, right? I was talking to a therapist the other day who's a student about this, and she was saying that whenever her clients talk about feeling like they can't be heard, or they couldn't be heard in a situation, or they felt that they couldn't speak, that they tighten their throats. She always hears them tighten their throat. So someone's emotional state is very much reflected in their voice. And then also, how centered is someone, right? If someone's breathing deeply and they're connecting to their core, I'm doing it a little bit right now, and they're centered, that the use, the what I call mindful use of the voice, is just as powerful as mindful breathing. There's been all this talk about mindful breathing. Well, what if we connect the voice to that mindful breathing? Then you actually get, my students will all say, I feel like there's a sound massage all the way from the bottom of my torso up through my throat into my face. And that is, I really believe that the chakras were discovered by yogis through sounding. Because if you sing a chant and move sound through your body, you really become aware of chakras and what's moving and what's not moving. So the actual whole, I would say, chakra openingness of the body is very much affected by sound. And one more thing I want to say is trauma, right? Mm-hmm. So trauma can create what we call a lump in the throat. And after I had heard of that, and I thought, oh, a lump in the throat, what is that? But I had many students come to me. I always say that the experiences that I have help me heal or teach someone else, even if they're tough. So my mother died, who I was very close to, and afterwards I had this lump in my throat, and it felt literally like a lump in my throat. I was wondering what was happening, but I realized that my emotion was stuck in my throat. And what happens is you end up engaging swallowing muscles and extra muscles in your throat when that happens. I had this lump in my throat, which served a purpose. By blocking this area, it actually stopped me from feeling. It stopped the energy from moving into my heart chakra, which I needed that to be the case to get through the funeral, all the things I had to do. I actually needed to not feel. So it did serve a purpose. But once I got through the funeral and all of the stress of that, I started doing primal sounding and singing to move it out. Because otherwise what will happen is that will just become habitual, right?
I love what you just said, that idea that it's not that we want to block it or not feel it even, right? But we want to learn how to regulate. Right. And all of us need to find moments in life where we're better able to regulate. I deal with this often with my son who's 8, and figuring out in those moments when he's having a big freak out, how to regulate. And we don't want to not feel completely, but we want to be able to discern how to meet the moment, right? And the needs of the whole moment, and make sure there's a moment where it can fully express in the ways it needs to express. So one of the things I love about your work that I've discovered with you over years as we go deeper and deeper with it is that we take these, at times, the asanas, the postures that are through the yoga traditions, and work with sound in very particular refined ways. I had not come across many traditions in my research and time of studying yoga. I've been dedicated to yoga since I was 12 years old. And now being 46, it's been a ride. It's been a while. And leading yoga programs, teaching for 26 years, but now yoga in the Healing Sciences program that I lead now for 12 years, we go deep into these different traditions and other certain aspects of healing that different traditions have offered. But I hadn't come across many traditions that are overlaying the sounds other than mantra. There's specific mantras in certain asana practices, but I hadn't heard just pure frequency tone without it having to imply certain words, often being used. And I like how the way you work with things is sometimes words and sometimes just pure frequency tone that can be discovered and explored by people very authentically, right, in the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah, and but it's still very specific, right? It's not just free for all. It's also specifically attuning for that person. So the way that has changed my life personally with working with sound in the body and energy, but also how I see it work with people, my own students, and my own one-on-one private practice with medical use, with yoga therapy and with integrative medicine techniques. It's been profound to watch how much it opens people up. It's a whole different level of what I see happening for people when they add the sound into it.
Wow. Thank you so much, Terra. That's wonderful to hear. So how I developed that is that came out of my own experience of trying to heal myself. And I found that if I got into certain poses, and since I have this background of all the anatomy and physiology of the muscles used in phonation and breathing, I found that if I got into certain postures and moved into these postures, first I'll do is I'll have them just do a sound before they move into the posture, just to see what their voice feels like. And then I have them move into the posture. And as they move in, I like to use a primal sound. A lot of them, they're tones that I explored and found were best, and also certain sounds that we find in actually voice therapy, mostly in the European voice therapy tradition, that are good to tone on. But also what I discovered, and this was just accidental, I discovered that in a certain pose, if I added a specific tone and then moved into the pose and kept toning, that my voice changed. Mm-hmm. And it was very weird. All of a sudden I got what I now like to call a golden tone. All of a sudden this tone came out that was so rich, so full of overtones, so not necessarily what I was used to. And my breath just extended forever. So I could sound in this tone forever. So was my first experience, which led me to see, And so I went through all the yoga poses and saw which ones can affect the voice the best. And then I started studying all about fight or flight and the muscles of fight or flight. And I discovered that we have a series of fight or flight muscles, literally from head all the way down into our legs. So how are those impacted on a daily basis? So I found by opening up those places with tone that the voice and breath changed. So this all started about getting a golden tone. I thought, and then everybody would come in, 2-hour workshop. They'd come in with like a really disconnected voice. And then they'd leave with this booming voice and they'd say, wow, I don't know who this is. Who is this person with the rich voice? And they'd have a big smile on their faces. They'd leave. It happens really fast in the work.
It is. It can. And that's part of what I love about it, right? That you don't necessarily have to practice for hours. You don't necessarily have to practice for even over an hour. You can find it pretty quick once you understand the pathways and you understand the practices, which is exciting and empowering for so many people when they learn it.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. And then you have the experience. I hate to use the word authentic. It's been so overused, but you get the experience of what your real voice is, what your voice is with all its overtones and what it can be. And then you can go out and notice that's my free, unencumbered, open the body, stress-free voice. And then what happens is if you pay attention to your voice and your breath, you can notice when stress is starting to impact your body. And then you can do one of my asanas and free your voice back up.
I really love that you're bringing that up because, in any tradition of anything, there's often, I think, people that try and get people to do a particular way, right? Part of it's, I want you to do my way, so you carry my way forward, right? There's that. You find it in yoga all the time. Teachers trying to get people to do it. This is the right way, right? And that's the only way, or stick with just this way. I've heard the same thing when I studied voice when I was younger, right? There were various traditions and styles. You do it like this. And I think it's always great to learn and understand context for anything we're learning. But ultimately, it does come down to, how do I learn all this so that ultimately I find what is my yoga or what is my voice and what is the authentic version of that? And that's what I'm hearing you say that I think is so beautiful and valuable and ultimately much more useful for everybody in our, when we're finding that level of masterful understanding of these things.
Yes, and I also come out of an acting tradition, theater background as well. And in the theater world, which I think everybody should do some theater, it's a personal exploration. And that's what this is. It's a personal exploration of your breath, your body, your voice, and getting to really know who that person is. What is your voice? Right? A lot of people think that the voice that they have is the voice that they're stuck with. Like if you're born with a certain voice, that you're stuck with that for the rest of your life, and you're not.
I hear the same thing with hamstrings and forward bends. They go, I have short hamstrings. It's just not part of what my body will ever do.
Right.
Really? I'm not so sure about that. Let's see.
Yeah. That's interesting. I love that. Yeah, we're not stuck with the voice we're born with. It's completely transformable. And it's the thing that I love about, so there's all of this, people say, find your voice, and they'll talk about writing so you find your voice, or this or that. But if you really physically find your voice, wow, it's really empowering. Mm-hmm. And then I want to say one more thing, and then I'll let you jump in. And also, something that I teach is for the person to find the voice, and also how to use the voice consistently in a way that they have control of. That's confidence building.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think about this so much these days, especially because more than ever, everyone's finding how to connect more through here, video, Zoom, and it's the primary way these days, more than in person still for a lot of people on this planet. So it seems like how we can fine tune our understanding of working with voice is even more important than I can imagine even a year ago, right? Because what you see visually, what you hear is going to be the primary sensory connective opportunities. I often hear about teachers in the yoga community, or teachers who are teaching students losing their voices because they overly project and push, right? So is something you could say about that, about just even a simple little something that could help them learn to not push so hard, but get the energy across that needs to be shared?
Absolutely. So funny enough, sorry, I'm having a little frog. Morning voice. Okay. I just had one of your students from the Loyola Marymount program last week come and work with me. And this is something that should be, I believe, a must in all yoga teacher programs. Once you're a yoga teacher, you are a professional voice user. That's an important thing to know. And the number one demographic that we see in speech therapy laboratories with nodes and which are blisters that turn to calluses or voice disorders are teachers. The reason why is there's an extended amount of talking, trying to speak loud enough to get the person in the back of the room to be able to hear you. So one thing I like, if I'm teaching a class, I don't want them spread all out over a giant room. If I have a big room and there's 10 students, make them all come closer to you. That's important. Walk around. Don't be far away from your students. Don't make yourself have to force your voice. And then secondarily, you have to drop your breath into the rib and abdominal area. The breath has to drop. So I'm going to just kind of put my hands here. Everybody watching, find your bottom rib, put your hand in your belly. You must breathe here. And the reason why you must breathe here in doing what we call a deep diaphragmatic breath. I'm not saying just diaphragmatic because all breath is diaphragmatic. A deep diaphragmatic breath because we actually use the abdominal muscles to power the voice. The voice is breath. We have to remember that the voice is breath. And the first place where we have the sensation of our breath expanding into our body is where we will grab for power. Now, if you breathe in the upper part of your chest, which many people do, everybody put your hands here and breathe here. If you breathe in the upper part of the chest, what will happen is that you'll go, you'll go to power your voice from here.
And it's tighter.
Yeah. And then it'll get tighter right here in the throat area. Talk for a second, Terra, while I do a couple straw exercises to This is also something you must all do. You must all have a straw. Ingo Titsa brought this back. Regular drinking size or skinny. Ultimately, you want to be skinny. Now, my throat is, this is morning for me. I'm a late night person, so I need a little straw work. Take the straw. Ooh. 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 What this does is this actually gets the vocal cords to line up really well. So your vocal cords, actually, my straw is going to roll all over here.
Just so that you know, the sound you are making, when it's on the straw, it's a little bit more contained. But I know that we do this sometimes open out into the air, into the room. So you might want to just give them one version what that would sound like, what you were actually doing with the straw.
So you actually don't try to project. You're just going to make an ooh and a straw. Now, why you want to do that? So this works in so many ways fantastically. First of all, if you use the straw and you breathe in the belly, you will feel what we call the abdominal support kick in. And if you've never felt it before, you will feel it with a straw. Secondarily, your vocal cords come together in the bottom. Mine aren't coming together very well right now, you can hear. They come together in the bottom, and then they roll, and then they open, like this. Now, that is not always really clean. If you use the straw, they come together really clean.
Mm-hmm. So I want to just say, too, that some of these techniques have been so effective and wonderful for working with respiratory disorders. So one of the things I've done for about 10 years now is teach respiratory disorder yoga therapy through the Loyola Marymount programs in yoga philosophy and training programs. And that's one of the ones I give them because it is so fabulous for retraining how to work with breath and air and regulating even the nervous system. It's a wonderful regulator even for stress and anxious.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And beyond just getting your vocal cords to line up, it creates a back pressure. So now your lips are here. And sorry, I'm here. And it creates a back pressure to your vocal cords that massages your vocal cords. So your vocal cords get massaged, they line up well, and it's the safest way to stretch your vocal cords. So the vocal cords, I like to call them the hamstrings of the throat, because the first time you go to stretch your vocal cords, they don't want to go very far. But then you go a little, another sounding. Ooh, you go a little higher. Oh, they stretch a little more. You go a little higher. Ooh, little higher. Ooh. And I'm going to go really high, but you hear how that cleared up my voice by going high. Now you can hear the difference. I'm kind of glad I had a little bit of a voice episode right here because you can hear how I'm clearing that up.
Totally. It's awesome to hear the change you just made.
Yeah. I had to engage my abs more because the closure was a little funky. And then this can happen to anybody, right? I was kind of late.
Also, we mentioned how often it happens with people who are professional voice users, right? Yeah. So if we're presenting in front of large groups, or whether it's even on Zoom or in a big room that you're trying to resonate in, either way, this can happen, this constriction. And sometimes it's nerves, and sometimes it's over pushing, or sometimes it's just simply being early in the morning.
It's just my morning phlegm.
Right. So it's so nice to hear how easy we can clear it when we do these little exercises.
Yeah. So if I have it, what I'll do is I'll really, really kick in the abs, and then I'll do the straw. Now I have to go high because often the phlegm is hanging out on your cords, and they get more taut and thin as you go higher. Shakes the phlegm off. This is something people always complain about phlegm. Right? It shakes the phlegm off your vocal cords. And so, and what else do I want to say about that. If you don't have a straw, you can make a little, don't open your mouth, but a little what we call semi-occluded sound, like, yes, she's ready, a little try one of those, Terra. Yeah, it sounds really silly.
If you haven't been used to doing this, by the time when you do it a little bit, you find yourself laughing hysterically. And that might be part of the healing in vocal yoga, is that you laugh a lot. Yes. I really recommend this because nothing's been the laughter for healing anything, pretty much, in my opinion. But I want to just ask you too. You've been teaching vocal yoga for some time, and then like you said, we have this training coming up. It's not just geared for vocalists. It's not just geared for actors. It's not just geared for teachers. It's actually for anybody that understands the importance of voice and that they realize they want to come into really owning more of their true voice. Yeah?
Exactly. Yeah. Very well put.
So I want to just say that I get to be part of it, and I'm looking forward to it. It's one of the things I look forward to every time this time of year. So check out Heather Lyle's website, anybody, if you haven't ever, which is vocalyoga.com. Yeah. And then there's information on that coming up for June. And then I'm also going to have you as part of my faculty coming up in the fall, Yoga in the Healing Sciences teacher training program.
And I have to say, it's the best yoga program, I really think. It really is. I did it. I absolutely loved it. You know what? This is absolutely terrible that I don't have my book sitting next to me, but let me run over to my cabinet right here. I'm in my office.
Yeah, well, she gets her book. I was going to say, Heather's going to be teaching some really important pieces on how to really work with the voice, and we're going to have lots of practices that are something that people could practice on a regular basis. It's really life-changing when you step into this kind of work. It's transformative emotionally, energetically, structurally, on every level of the koshas in yoga, the subtle bodies and the denser bodies. It's powerful stuff. So I'm really pleased to be a part of it. I love being part of it every year. And here's her book, Vocal Yoga.
And I love having Terra. Terra has brought so much to the program. Oh my goodness. I mean, and we just have a great time, and everybody has a wonderful time. And then you're part of the vocal yoga family forever. I got to do this very dramatically here.
Okay, here it comes. The Vocal Yoga book by Heather.
Vocal yoga book has gone all over the world, amazingly. And
I'm proud of you because you self-published. You're just a brilliant, amazing woman.
Yeah. It's distributed by New Leaf Distributors. If you have a store and you want to buy some, go to New Leaf. What else did I want to say? I've got an exercise CD of 44 singing exercises, and I have a breathing CD out right now.
I highly recommend them. I've used them for years, and they have helped me so many times to prepare before I'm going to be giving lots of teachings, or also if you're a singer, I used them a lot when I was preparing for a singing album that I put out. So I think we need to end soon, but I just I'm just so happy I got to be with you. And if anyone wants to know more about what we're doing on my website, it's terrawellness.com, TERA wellness.com, and Heather Lyle at vocalyoga.com.
Yes. Thank you for having me so much, Terra.
Love you.
Love you too. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And everybody out there, metal straws are everywhere. Get a metal straw. This is just like a cocktail size of the old-fashioned stirring straw. Get some and play with them.
They're really fun. They're worth doing.
Anybody who speaks more than 30 minutes a day. Pretty much,
unless you're a monk in a cave.
Exactly. And let's see. Ingo Titze, Ingo Titze. He put out a video that explains all about the straws. He actually has a 3-part video now. And I'm actually in it doing yoga. You'll see me doing yoga in it. I really, really recommend it if you want to know more about straw phonation.
I also want to say this is so good for kids because it's one of the things that kids really love doing. So anyone who's teaching kids, working with kids, you want to help them find their unique sense of empowerment through their voice. This is a really nice, simple exercise for all ages.
Absolutely. And it does so much.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.
Bye, everybody.